So today we're going to talk about journey mapping. Journey mapping is a design thinking approach. So it's actually used a lot in industry and different fields where there are like technological innovations and different tools that people might want to use, but are really not quite sure how every step in the process of using that particular tool will go. So um, one of the things I like to use journey maps for is to put ourselves into the mind of our learners, or to put our minds into the ourselves into the minds of our end users, depending on who that might be. And so we can do that by using something called a journey map. So a journey map is it's really just a visual diagram that depicts the different stages that people go through when they're interacting with something, either a company or a product. And actually, a lot of industries do use this as they're evaluating the steps in the process, whatever that process might be. So this is an example of a journey map, and you're going to see a couple things that are kind of similar in the different journey maps I'm going to show you today. So along the top, you can see that there are different stages or different, I almost like to say chunks, different chunks of the experience or the process. Then there's a little description of the activities, what's going on at that particular part of the or stage of the process. Then you can see there's of course a little icon underneath that. You've got a gift and a globe and a phone and all kinds of stuff. Underneath that, you'll see kind of an emotion map, if you will. And so you can see that there are happy faces, sort of okay faces, and sad faces. And so that part is really tracking how the user feels at that particular moment. And then underneath those, there are some experiences. So this part, in this particular journey map, the person is thinking about, you know, kind of what are they feeling at this particular moment? Not just are they happy or not happy or in the middle, but like what specifically are they feeling? And then at the bottom, you can see this one has customer expectations. So what it is that the person expects at that particular time. And so this map that we're looking at, this journey map, is for an online shopping experience. Let me show you another one. This one is for shopping for a new car. And so there are some similarities between this one and the one before. Along the top, you can see kind of the pieces, the chunks, or the steps in a process. So this is, again, shopping for a new car. So the first part is that they're considering shopping for a new car, then they're exploring, then they're comparing, testing, and finally negotiating. And then underneath that, you can see for this one, it looks like they've got a phone icon and also like a laptop icon. So I don't know, but I'm going to guess that this means they're thinking about where are people, what are they using? What device are they using while they're thinking about this particular step of buying a new car? Then underneath that, you can see what is going on. So kind of the parts of that particular step. So under consider, you see that the person is, they see a commercial about a new car or a website, and then maybe they even see something on Facebook that pops up. And so that gets them in the process of considering what they might want to do. And then underneath all the text there, you can sort of see the squiggly line, right? And the squiggly line is showing you what we think the customer might be thinking or saying at that part of the process. And then again, it's kind of higher for where they're feeling lower, and it's a little, higher for where they're feeling happier or better about the process, lower where they're not feeling great about the process. And so you can kind of see how that tracks along each step of the process. So it turns out we can actually use this journey mapping idea for education. We can actually use it anytime we're thinking about a process, and we want to look for maybe kinks in that process, places where things are going awry, pitfalls maybe. And this really will help us to figure out where those problems are showing up. So I've got an example for you here, and this is an example. I have laid out a research paper assignment. And so this, we're thinking about this from the point of view of a faculty member that's planning an assignment for their students. And so they might have kind of some big pieces of that research paper assignment. These are kind of the big chunks of what they would expect students to do. So first you can see they would expect students to choose a topic and get that topic approved. Next, they're going to gather research. Then they have students turning in an annotated bibliography. Then an outline is due, then a rough draft, then they'll be editing and revising, and then finally they'll turn in their final paper. So those are kind of the big steps, the big pieces of this research paper assignment. Now, these are not necessarily laid out like that for students, but that would be kind of what a faculty member would expect students to go through. That's kind of the process they would expect them to use. So after we've laid out those big pieces, the big chunks of the assignment, then we're going to, I usually like to draw lines down just to keep myself focused. So I've drawn lines in between each one of those steps. Then we're going to go through and we're going to think about, for each of those steps, what are the materials that are required? And the reason that we put materials on here is because sometimes the barriers that students run into are in the materials themselves. So we've listed what materials we think students will need for each of these steps in the process. So you can see for the first step, which is choosing a topic and getting it approved, students will need access to Canvas. They'll need either a laptop or a tablet, some kind of a device, and then they'll need reliable Wi-Fi. And then you can see I've listed the materials for each step. So you can, they're vertical, right? So the next part, this is similar to the happy faces and sad faces and the ups and downs that we saw on the other two journey maps. So now I'm going to think through each step and consider, where do I feel like my students are going to be as far as well, maybe confidence or engagement, or whatever. It's going to depend kind of on what it is that you're talking about, what the process is that you're looking at. So for this one, I'm going to think about students' confidence in what they're doing. And so when we first get started in that first step, choosing a topic and getting it approved, students are pretty optimistic, right? Like they're excited about it. Hey, I get to choose a topic. That's great. So you can see that I've put them up a little bit higher. Then as we get down to the gathering research part, they're like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing here. Like, not sure where to start, not sure if I'm doing this right. So their confidence is pretty low at that point. And then so on. I've done that through each of the 7 steps, and you've got an X marked where I feel like they might be as far as their confidence goes. And then the dotted line that you see through the middle there is just sort of the baseline, the midpoint, right? So after I've added those X's, I usually like to go back and just connect them so I can see the flow, visually the flow of the assignment. And that also helps me to determine where I might need to add some more support along that process. So after I've kind of mapped out where I think their confidence level will be, now I'm going to go back and I'm going to try to predict what are some of the pitfalls, what are some of the barriers that students are going to run into in each of these steps. So let's look at the second step, the gathering research step. Underneath that step, the barriers I think students are going to have, because let's pretend I've taught this class for a really long time. I've worked with undergraduates for a while, and I kind of know where they are when it comes to research. And so I'm going to say, one of the barriers is that they don't really know what a journal is. Like, what is an academic journal, right? Do they think it's the same thing as like a diary type journal? Maybe they do, who knows, right? So they maybe just don't know what exactly they're looking for when they're looking for academic research. They don't know how to find articles. That's another barrier that I think might be a possibility for these students. It's possible that they don't have a laptop or a tablet. We know that there are students who are typing entire research papers on their phones. And also if they're using the online library service to search for articles, maybe they don't have good Wi-Fi and they're continuing to get kicked offline, and it's becoming very frustrating. So those are some of the barriers that I think students might run into as they're in that gathering research part. And so I'm going to do the same thing for every other step. What are some of the problems I think students might possibly run into? I'm trying to anticipate as proactively as I can what barriers students might run into. And then for the last part, now that I've identified what I think maybe some of the barriers might be, I'm going to try to think about, are there proactive solutions or strategies that I could build in so that those barriers are removed for students. So let's look at number 3 this time, the annotated bibliography. So it looks like the barriers I've said that I think students might run into is that they don't know what an annotated bibliography is. They're not really sure of how to use APA format. They don't understand why it's a thing. And possibly they don't have the laptop or tablet. Again, maybe their Wi-Fi is not great. So the strategies I'm going to try to use to help remove the barriers for this particular part are modeling how I annotate a bibliography. So if I were doing this in my own research, like if I were getting ready to write my own article, how would I annotate a bibliography? What would that look like for me? And I'm going to model that for students and talk aloud about what that might look like. Then I'm also going to have them practice in small groups annotating a couple pieces, a couple of journal articles. and they're going to write out the APA formatting. Then they're going to practice together as a small group. How might we annotate that particular source? And then finally, just for funsies and to kind of reinforce the idea of APA formatting, we're going to have an APA scavenger hunt where I provide for them a bibliography list with a lot of mistakes in the APA formatting, and they have to go in and search for those mistakes and find them. So hopefully that will help to kind of demystify APA formatting for them. And so I would do that for each of the steps, try to figure out what are the barriers, but then how can I help to remove those barriers ahead of time so that they don't even become a problem. So that is journey mapping all together. I'm going to also send along with you all your very own giant, humongous journey map. I'll also send just a regular 8x10 version. On one side, it's 2 pages. So one page will be a blank journey map, and then the second page will be the one that you're looking at right here, this example of this research paper assignment. So thank you all. If you have any questions, you're always welcome to contact us at CELT, and I look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.